So in class, we've been learning about activities that we like to do in the winter, like sledding and skiing. And we've also been focusing on some of our descriptive words for the winter. Can anybody give me an example of a descriptive word? How would you finish the sentence? The snow looked
Fluffy.
fluffy. That's a great one. How about, what about a color? How does the snow look?
Glistening.
Oh, wow. You guys are really good at descriptive words. Well, this book has a bunch of awesome descriptive words, and it's also going to teach us a cool new activity that we can do in the winter time. So it's called Owl Moon by Jane Yolen. As we read, if I ask you, be ready to give me some descriptive words, and we'll add them to the board, and then when we're all done, I'll add them to the word wall for us. All right, are you ready? It's called Owl Moon. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind, the trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright that the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us, a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. I could hear it through my woolen cap Pa had pulled down over my ears. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time. And when their voices faded away, it was quiet as a dream. We walked towards the woods, Pa and I. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short round shadow bumped after me. So there were some really good descriptive words. Can anybody give me a descriptive word that I read to them?
Long.
Oh, yes. Describing his shadow, right?
Yeah.
What's another one? How did they describe the snow?
Crisp.
Perfect. Great. All right. But I never called out. If you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always says. I have been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long, long time. We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right where I was and waited. He looked up, as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silver mask, and then he called, "Hoo, hoo, hoo," the sound of a great horned owl. "Hoo, hoo, hoo." Again he called out, and then again. After each call, he was silent, and for the moment we both listened, but there was no answer. Pa shrugged, and I shrugged. But I was not disappointed. My brothers all said, "Sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't." We walked on. I could feel the cold, as if someone's icy hand was palmed down on my back. What was the descriptive word in that sentence?
Icy.
Oh, yes. That's a good way to describe this weather outside, isn't it? Icy cold. And my nose and the tops of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. We went into the woods. The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry, for the scarf over it was wet and warm. What about that sentence? Were there any descriptive words?
Furry.
Yes. What was he describing with furry?
How his mouth felt.
Perfect. I didn't ask what kinds of things hid in the black trees in the middle of the night, because when you go owling, you have to be brave. Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above us. It seemed to fit exactly over the center of the clearing, and the snow below it was whiter than milk in a cereal bowl. So, how did he describe the snow?
Whiter than milk.
Yes, perfect. So colors can be descriptive too, can't they?
Yeah.
I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf, over my mouth, and listened hard. And then Pa called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." And I listened, and I looked so hard my ears hurt, and my eyes got cloudy with the cold. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Hoo, hoo, hoo. Pa almost smiled. Then he called back, "Hoo, hoo, hoo," as if he and the owl were talking about supper, or about the woods, or the moon, or the cold. I took my mitten off of the scarf, off of my mouth, and I smiled too. The owl's call came closer. From high up in the trees on the edge of the meadow, nothing in the meadow moved. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of a big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with the heat of our mouths and the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow without a sound. So what was it? Is there any descriptive words in that?
Great.
Perfect. And great doesn't really mean good here. What does great mean in that sentence?
Really big.
Right, his great big giant wings. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Pa said to me. And then I knew I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words or warmth or anything but hope. That's what Pa says. The kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon. And on the last page, that last sentence, there were 2 really good descriptive words. What do you think?
Shining.
Perfect. One more. Means really quiet.
Silent.
Perfect. Isn't that a better way to say quiet?
Yeah.
Quiet's a first grade word. We're in second grade now. So this was Owl Moon. So we learned about owling, and so it has some really great descriptive words to write on our word wall. So while you guys go to recess, I'm going to put these up on the wall. So now when we write about all of our activities, we have some more words to look at.